Good evening, and thank you so much for coming to this seminar. I'm Dave Reed, and I'd like to just say a couple of words about myself. I actually trained as a state teacher, so I have plenty of experience in the classroom. But I also trained about getting on for about 15, 16 years ago as a healer, a spiritual healer, but that's something more akin to Reiki. It's nothing to do with any religion or belief. And I was working at just an ordinary secondary school on the Essex-Suffolk border in England, in the UK. And I found more and more people were actually wanting to work with me after school on healing sessions. So I willingly did that. And then I was asked, can you actually turn this, what you do, perhaps into a workshop? And this was back in 2006. And I thought, I don't know, but we'll give it a go. And that was back in 2006. I was part-time working at Mandatory High School, where I was at the time. And gradually, this grew from one workshop into the 20-odd workshops it is now, and the Cool Fire programs which we've developed. And Cool Fire, we use the term Cool Fire because it's using the fire of your energy, but in a really, really cool way. So what I'd like to do to start, well, the other thing to say, of course, is that what I do is trying to bring, if you like, a therapeutic approach to well-being into the classroom, because there is such an emphasis, as we'll come to see, on the mind, etc. But the mind is just one part of it. If we work on the well-being aspect, not just for the teachers, but also for pupils and everyone working in the whole equation, which is education, then the actual academic progress will actually come with it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go onto PowerPoints. Don't worry, I'm not going to read PowerPoints at you. But we can see and talk through first of all, a little bit of background. Let's show you what's in the workshop first. So I'm
Dave, yes? I'm going to stop you for one moment just before you start there.
Yeah, okay.
I'm going to also close your microphone for a moment. I would like everybody to know that Dave is going to be giving a presentation, and every so often he will stop and ask if there are questions and entertain the opportunity to participate in the discussion or to ask questions. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat and we'll save them. I'll write them down so we can present them to him later. And later on, there'll be the opportunity to take the microphones as well. So we're looking forward to that. Julie, I don't know why that echo is. I'm not getting it, so I hope that things will work out. Dave, I'm going to close my microphone again now, and you're welcome now to take it again. And please.
Okay. Right. Can see this. Is this going to work? I don't know. I don't seem to be able to move these slides.
We see the first slide at the moment.
Yes, I can't seem to move the slide.
That was me. I did that. Oh, no.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I move it?
Yes,
right.
you're doing okay.
Okay, so I'm doing okay now. Right, fine. Okay, so this workshop is in several sections. First of all, we're going to have a look at some basic principles, all the principles really which underlie the approach that I've developed, and with the emphasis really on a holistic approach, mind, body, and feelings. Then we're going to have a little bit longer look at the biochemistry of how we actually work inside ourselves, so to speak. Having an awareness of this will actually help us to work with these aspects. And also, I'm going to introduce perhaps a little different perspective tonight. I'm going to spend a little bit longer on this, but I think it will really, really help, because the third section is where we actually apply this very, very practically in the classroom, with the emphasis on slowing down classroom interaction. In other words, beginning to change the relationship between you as teachers and the pupils. And in doing so, you actually not only change the relationship, but you change the feeling, the thought, the actions, and you'd be amazed, hopefully, at some of the results which would come from that. The last part is some practical work on breathing. Now, you might think, okay, we take breath work for granted, etc. But this is an example of how you can use one positive output, or inputs, if you like, out of very many, which will have an immediate effect, really positive effect, and you can put into use in the classroom the next day, or pass on to your students, but it will make a difference, a practical difference in effective teaching and learning, in effect. So I'm going to go on, so I'm going to remain in the background of this, but hopefully you'll hear me. So with the basic principles, and first of all, does this look familiar? So often, education systems throughout the world merely focus on task. Everything's task, task, task. And on top of that is to do that task better, quicker, more thorough. And all that emphasis is on mind, mind, mind. So although, of course, the information, the tasks are important, this, to me, the undue emphasis on the mind cuts out 2/3 of the equation, which enables mind to work. And later on, we're going to be questioning, actually, where on earth is the mind anyway? And what's the function of the mind? So what we need to have a look at instead is, I hope, this mind-body-feeling synthesis. So it's a 3-part equation. And just think that when we were first born, or say between the ages of, say, 1 and 3 or something like that, the way we experienced the world was mainly through our emotions and our senses. As soon as the mind, so-called intellectual part, cuts in, then we start conceptually questioning things, and we get a continual, not conflict, but imbalance all the time between mind, body, and feelings. And so almost feelings almost like tyrannical, in effect. Now, in effect, you could say that mind, body, and feelings is a lifetime mission. But the more we can actually start from an early age of working with these consciously, then that will make a huge difference. So at the heart of this, then, is to say that every action starts with a thought. But in turn, I would say that every thought is embedded in a feeling. So it's not surprising, you've probably heard this before, that if you change the feeling, consciously change the feeling, you are consciously, therefore, able to change the thought, and therefore, the resultant action. Whoops. So change the feeling, change the thought, change the action. And a lot of what Cool Fire does in Creating Calm does is actually helping the person, be it a 3-year-old or 45-year-old, to start consciously being able to consciously change that feeling. So to try and then get that awareness of the effect between mind, body, and feelings. So the mind-body connection, this is a major part of the work of what we do, and we're going to really prove this definitively tonight, I'd like to say. And the first thing to say about the mind-body connection is that for every input emotionally or feeling-wise, I would argue that there's a what I would say, bit of a mouthful, a biological correlate. So in other words, there's a response inside the body to every feeling and emotion which we have. So there's that mind-body connection. At the same time, though, those responses are also the same responses as they were 40,000 years ago. So it's just we have different stimuli. So instead of maybe a saber-toothed tiger producing a physical response in you, maybe it's, maybe, I don't know the equivalent, but maybe a year 9 class on a wet Wednesday afternoon or something like that produces maybe similar responses. So what I want to do, first of all, is have a look at what is the traditional approach to this fight-flight approach. In other words, that is an example, or the main example, of an input having an effect on the body. So a mental input having a physical effect. And so, I'm not sure if anyone knows where that, let's imagine we had our caveman, and he's going out around, and he says, oh, I don't know, what do you fancy for tea? Got pterodactyl nuggets again. Well, I'll tell you what, I'll get that saber-toothed tiger. So there he is, dumping around for 5 days, and he sees the saber-toothed tiger. So the first place where that reaction starts on this top-down model, on the sort of more neuroscience approach, is in the pituitary gland, which is right at the back of the brain, at the base, in what we call the limbic system. But I'll talk about that a bit later on. And what that does, that effect, that mental input, is actually putting the body on standby. So the pituitary gland produces adrenocorticotropic hormone. Don't worry about that too much, bit of a mouthful. But in effect, what that then does is trigger the adrenal glands, around the kidneys to give the body sufficient energy. Now, this is a short-term effect. It's action effect there and then to enable you to be able to do what you have to. So what normally happens then is that the breathing increases, and quite often that might get to hyperventilation. But one of the big themes of this workshop is, instead of these short, sharp breaths, and most of us breathe very, very shallowly, in a very shallow way, what we're going to be doing in this workshop is getting that breath deeper and slower. But at this time, the breathing probably increases, the heartbeat rises, blood pressure rises, and the blood cholesterol rises. The reason being of that is that if you're going to fight that tiger, that saber-tooth tiger, you need energy in your arms. If you were going to run away from that tiger, you need energy in your legs. Now, that energy comes from your stomach. So the fat is drawn away from your stomach in the form of cholesterol and put into your arms and legs, which is still the reason why that people who are so-called stressed on a reasonably mid-term basis begin after about maybe 6 months to a year to start experiencing gastric problems. So that might be ulcers or irritable bowel syndrome or something like that. So that is still the same physiological effect. But overall, the main effect of this, and what we're not aware of, is that most of the organs become, our main organs like kidney, liver, etc., become inflamed. They start to swell. And that actually puts quite an effect, or a negative effect, on aspects of the rest of our body, which I'll come to explain a bit later on. But regardless, whilst all this is going on, it's your immune system which is becoming suppressed. And of course, if you want to catch something, where do you go? Well, maybe school, hospital, perhaps. But your immune system is becoming suppressed. And therefore, this is a short-term response, the classic stress response. But I would also argue that you do not have to be particularly hyper or stressed to have this reaction. Teachers particularly, because when I was a teacher, I'll go back on the webcam for 2 seconds. Yes, that's right. Because when I was a teacher, you had that feeling, you've got that ultra awareness, that 24/7, that sort of completely on the radar awareness all the time. You're in a state of not hypertension, but hyper awareness. And it doesn't take much to actually tip you over to get this short-term reaction. But what also happens though, because you're on that sort of edge maybe, not particularly worried or upset or anything like that, but just mega aware on standby, so to speak, that the body then interprets this as needing greater support for a longer time. So in other words, that so-called threat, which the adrenaline kicks in, is now seen that you actually need more support and to keep you going, a longer term response to that threat. So this is where the same reaction takes place, starting with the pituitary gland, adrenocorticotropic hormone, down to the adrenal glands. But this time, the adrenal glands produce cortisol. And it's this cortisol which actually begins to hardwire you. And this can happen after only a couple of days. But without realizing it, you're probably living it more than you actually think. Now, I'll just go back onto the slideshow just to show you this. So as we said, we start with the same reaction there. But this time, for the body to be given, so you're on standby, so to speak, on a longer term basis. So you're going to need more energy. You're going to need blood supply. You're going to need more oxygen. So what happens? The body produces more glucose, but also the body starts, I wouldn't say to eat itself, far from it, but it begins to digest additional tissue within the liver. And therefore, it's a degenerative process. But also, it puts more pressure. So, sorry, that tissue which is digested is translated into energy, so your body can use it on a longer term basis. but is putting pressure all the time again on your major organs. So, whoops, I'm not having that right here on the, that's it. That's it. So what you have to avoid, or what tends to happen, is you start to get what might be seen as adrenal burnout, because everything is going, I wouldn't say at 100 miles an hour, but much more, much quicker rate. It's under pressure, and at the same time, those organs are still inflamed. So your body is needlessly going 100 miles an hour, so to speak. And that, of course, doesn't just apply to your job. That can have a knock-on effect with relationships, trying to sleep at night, insomnia perhaps as well, and then throw in all the electronic gadgets to boot. And you have not an uncommon situation in both teachers and students of this ongoing sort of, if you like, situation of tension or, let's say, a more alert state. So this is the classic top-down approach. So what we've actually worked with there is, I'm just going to switch back to webcam. Yes, so this is a classic top-down approach. And what we've just described there is working with the endocrine system, which is the glands which produce hormones here, 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 or the thymus, here, here, and here, in effect. So this is like top-down response. Now, this model puts like the command center up here in the head with all these organs, other organs, kicking in when no one is commanded to with a specific function. So what I'd like to introduce to now is a more holistic view on this, where the brain, although the brain is up here, but the function of the brain plays actually becomes very, very different, a different model. So let's go back to the slideshow. And what we've just seen, if I can get the slide, that's it. So this is the part which I formerly called the limbic system. The limbic system consists of the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland, and that cluster really there at the back at the top of the brainstem. And this, next door to it, is the model which we've just actually described in effect. Now, what I'd like to do, so from top-down hierarchy, I'd like to put to you that instead the body is working as a network. So where you've got the brain at the top beforehand, with this model, the neuroscience or neuro effect and all the other parts are more equal and in one, if you like, big pool, which are being communicated or communicate with what Schmidt calls information substance. And this information substance, there are 100 different types, and these are called neuropeptides. Now, to go back to the beginning where we said each input had a biological correlate, I would like to now make this a little bit further to say that every emotion or input actually produces molecules which then have a physical, which translates that emotional input into a physical reality, a physical happening in the body. And these, as I just said, are called neuropeptides. And we'll talk about what neuropeptides are in a minute. And the pioneer and the real stalwart for neuropeptides is a person called Candace Pert. And I'm just going to nip back to the webcam. Okay, so she's now died, unfortunately. She died a couple of years ago. She's only 67. But virtually alone, she pioneered the study of neuropeptides. Do have a look at this book called The Molecules of Emotion, Why You Feel the Way You Feel. And what we can see is that these neuropeptides, what they are, they're amino acids produced by neurons. Now, the neurons are the nerve cells, and the nerve cells use the neuropeptides to communicate with each other. But also, all major organs of the body also use these to communicate with each other. Now, you're probably familiar with some neuropeptides already. like endorphins. You've probably heard of endorphins. That's the happy chuckle ones, perhaps, when we all feel good. Maybe dopamine, serotonin. These are all the feel-good ones, you know, to get your chocolate fix, your serotonin fix from a bar of chocolate, etc. But these, there's lots and lots of different neuropeptides. And like I said, they're produced by neurons. So they actually, what happens with the neuropeptides is when the neuropeptides are produced, they actually circulate in the bloodstream and latch on to cells. Now, they only latch on to cells which have got the same pattern of receptors. So it might sound a bit technical, but it's all going to make sense in a minute. Once it's latched on, the cell can actually benefit in various ways, or it can be negative. For example, that cell can distort and change in shape. And a lot of doctors begin to see now that perhaps that might be the first links of cancer, as that cell distorts through a negative or an emotion, triggering a neuropeptide and going on to that cell. To release that, it's much more working with more positive inputs again. So these cells are very active in so much that the brain cells stay in one place, but neuropeptides in particular work with the immune system, particularly on the T cells and B cells. So B cells, antibodies, T cell, immune system, and they literally cling or lock onto these cells, and they can, by doing so, can then change the beneficial pattern and routing of these cells, and also, like I say, perform very, very change the emotion, change the action. So it actually produces quite a beneficial effect. So let's go back to the slideshow now, and I've cut across a few slides here by talking as I have done, but so we can see here that the neuropeptides, particularly in the lymphatic system. Now, I'll just say a little bit about the lymphatic system, because the lymphatic system is absolutely vital to our being, but everybody ignores it. Where you've got the heart pumping blood around the body, the lymphatic system is the immune system in effect, but it's absolutely still. The lymph is still until you stimulate it. And if we've got time, we can look at some exercises to actually do that, because a healthy lymph system is a healthy you in effect. So, as we said, I've given some examples of various neuropeptides, and I've got a little note here about the, I can never pronounce it, the norepinephrine. Now, this is quite often seen as a neuropeptide stimulated by positive behavior, but it also has the same receptor pattern as the common cold virus. So if, for example, some, being very simplistic here, very positive and optimistic, and lots of norepinephrine in their system, it doesn't give, they've already clamped to the particular cells in a particular way. And that means that it's much harder for the cold virus to actually take root and actually bind to those same cells because they're already full up. So that's an example of how that mental affects, that mental input, emotional input affects that physical in effect. I've listed a couple of other neuropeptides there, neuropeptide Y, but you can see that these neuropeptides being generated, they have specific functions. So, for example, neuropeptide Y, as you can see, reduces stress and anxiety, etc. Orexin, very much about regulating energy, sleep, and those aspects. So, therefore, what we need to do, and we'll be looking at, is generating these positive inputs, which affects those neuropeptide productions, which directly affect how we feel, think, act, and our overall well-being. However, these cells just don't lock onto other cells. They are capable of reproducing neuropeptides themselves. So not only within the cells themselves, but within the very bone marrow, which is the center of the immune system. And we find that up to 95% of the neuropeptides which are found in the brain, particularly around that limbic system which we looked at, can actually be found all over the body. So suddenly the mind is not so much up here in the head, but we're now looking towards more the idea of an intelligent body. And it's seen later, it's been thought for most of last century that the brain was so separate from the rest of the body, and you had almost like an impenetrable blood barrier. But no, those neuropeptides are actually throughout the whole body. So therefore, we are looking at, like I say, now at a different model. So instead of the mind being up here as a command center up in the head, the mind now might be able to be seen as more as a flow of energy, not located particularly in the brain, but throughout the whole body, in all these different neuropeptides and cells producing those neuropeptides. So instead of like a command center, we've now got the idea of a flow. And Diane Connolly, who worked closely with Candace Pert, introduced the idea of body-mind, just one idea together, body and mind, intricately linked. So the body and mind are not separate, but are acting as one, responding to these various aspects of positive and negative stimuli coming in. So let's try to work towards a redefinition of mind, etc. And I'm using Deepak Chopra's model here. Sorry, the slide here is jumped the gun. But let's go back to, sorry. Right, that's better. Right, so the mind. So according to Deepak Chopra, this is how he describes the mind. Okay, I'm going to read a PowerPoint, but you can see that it's the mind suddenly becomes an energy. It's actually embodied in cells and enables a free flow of information between cells, which changes all the time according to our emotional and our mental input. So therefore, if you're going to use terms like energy and information, the energy then is the capacity then to move things, and information is the resolution of uncertainty. That's one model, one way of looking at how neuropeptides actually work, changing this static idea of mind as a command center to a flow of energy throughout the body, which is continuously interacting with mind and our mental and emotional inputs and outputs. And this emotional input and output is actually what we could describe as a biofeedback loop, constantly in action. So we can see here that every thought, as we said, encodes a choice in effect. So every time that positive or negative mental or emotional input comes in, it triggers a choice depending on how we perhaps deal with the situation, what our bodies are doing, how we've conditioned them, what food we're putting in, how much sleep we're getting, etc. All this are really conscious choices which are coming together, which then decides on the neuropeptides being generated. And the other thing about comprising 50 trillion cells is that about every 3 to 5 years, we more or less regenerate ourselves. We renew ourselves with literally complete new cells. And yet, we don't have to start again from scratch. We don't have to start from going, who are you? What do you do as a cell, so to speak? We carry that memory with it. The cell has got that active intelligent memory built in throughout neuropeptide interaction. So, sorry, we have to, sorry, the cursor keeps moving. So therefore, each feeling and each thought is creating, if you like, this signal and this biofeedback loop. So what we can clearly see, therefore, let's just come back to me. That's better. Sorry, I'm here, still here. Right, so what we begin to clearly see, it's a two-way process because you've certainly got that emotional and mental stimuli coming in, which affects how the body reacts and works, but it's also the state of the body and how healthy or how positive or negative the effect it has, which affects how you are feeling and the emotions perhaps you are generating. So hence you've got, it's a loop, a biofeedback loop. And there's ways then on this basis which we can actually then work to introduce positive sector inputs in all sorts of ways, which is what Cool Fire does with children over different programs, etc., from an early age of 3 or 4. So I'm going to show you now an example of a positive set of inputs, and these might look so obvious and also really bulk terms, like huge big things to address. Again, this is Deepak Chopra, but it shows or it indicates the areas which, if we work at, and in particular ways which I can begin to show you, that we can then start to produce or work with neuropeptides and how we think and feel and act. So here's these positive inputs and feelings and emotions. And you can see, okay, it goes without saying, strong self-esteem, good diet, etc. But all of these things, you can see it's a mixture of input from mental and emotive to also physical as well, sleeping, etc., which is so important. In a balance, lack of tension and conflicts. Well, it's all cause and effect, and this is what we've tried to show, this biofeedback loop to work with. So, what I'm going to do now is to start to look at ways which can be part of these positive inputs. And I've got here a picture of the nervous system. Now, I'm going to do a little bit more biochemistry of body with you, if you like, just a few little bits here, which will really help as well. You can see that the nervous system is actually split into two. All the same nervous system, but positive and negative effects. So on the right-hand side is the sympathetic nervous system, and that is actually the fight-flight. That's the negative ones. So it's the same organs, but the pressure or the stress or that constant tension actually produces more negative effects, like inflamed organs, higher blood pressure, etc. On the left-hand side is the parasympathetic system, the same thing, the same nervous system, but with different inputs, which enables that positive nervous system to work differently, to work positively. They're all part of the same system, and you can see it's called the autonomous nervous system. So we haven't got any control over it, but we can stimulate one side or the other, or bits of both in effect. Now, two very important parts of the parasympathetic system, and one is called the atlas joint and the other the vagus nerve. So I'm going to come back on this one, come back into the outside world. Well, first of all, actually, no, I'm just going to show you this next slide so you can, there we go. So what we've got there in yellow is actually the vagus nerve, and vagus is Latin for wandering. You can see it actually connects every major organ in the body, and it comes up through a very narrow passage between the throat and the spine, and it comes through what's called the atlas joint at the back. Now I'm going to come back to me. Okay, so they're interrelated in a way. First of all, the atlas joint is like three plates with a hole in the middle where the spine comes up into the head. Now, if you just take two fingers on each hand and come up behind your ears, and you'll feel, it's difficult to show here, but two slight points behind your ears. Now, this is where the spine actually comes up into the brain. This is C1, the first vertebrae up here. So it comes quite a long way up, doesn't it? Now, the vagus nerve is also coming up through that area there. And you can see it, you can suspect it's probably quite a small space. So the more pressure we are putting on here, muscle-wise, tension-wise, but also simply doing this, so to speak, also begins to trigger that sympathetic effect all the way through your major organs, which includes inflammation. The other thing to say is that the vagus nerve actually comes diagonally across the diaphragm here, which makes why breathing, as we'll see later on, is so important, because deeper breathing here, if you like, the casement which the lungs are encased in, actually massages that vagus nerve and produces an amazing effect, parasympathetic effect, back through your whole system, beginning to start to get those positive inputs. So, one thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you to do a very simple but obvious thing. I'm going to show you how to get up out of a chair. And you think, come on, I've switched off tell you tonight, I could have done something else to stay in and watch Dave do this, but it's something we do thousands of times every day. But the way we normally do it has an enormous detrimental effect here on this atlas joint and vagus nerve here. So quite often when you get up, it's this, isn't it? You are putting a real pressure on the base. It's like a pile driver on the base of your spine. And that produces that sympathetic effect, that negative effect, right the way through your body. So here's another way which you can get up out of a chair. And I promise you it'll make a difference, probably in about 10 days. But it's habit, of course. So sometimes I forget as well. So the first thing to do is to decide whether you're right or left-handed. Well, I'm right-handed. So I'm going to put my right leg back here, my left leg forward. And instead of going pile driver straight up, I'm going to put all the weight on my right leg. And literally, I'm going to literally roll out and then put my weight back on that foot. So I'm just going to go back a bit so you can catch me. Can you get that?
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Right. So I'm right-handed. My right leg goes back. My weight is on that right leg. And again, I'm going to put that and forward. So what I'd like you to do now, wherever you are, this is wonderful in different parts of the world, wherever you're sitting, if you can, give yourself a bit of space and decide whether you're right, left-handed, of course, and then to do a couple of, if you like, what I call rollouts. So you're literally rolling out of your chair, and then do a couple of vertical takeoffs. See what you think. See if you can actually feel the difference just within a short time, a few seconds. Have a go now. I'm just going to have some water.
While Dave is drinking his water, the rest of us are getting up and sitting down and getting up and sitting down. And I'd be more than happy to see in the chat whether someone has had an experience of feeling the difference of this way of getting up. I did it twice while you were explaining, so that I could now talk while you were while you were having your water.
Yeah, I think, Jay, this is a good place to stop maybe for some questions.
Very good. Actually, what I'm going to do now is offer anyone to take a microphone if they would like. So now all the microphones are open. If someone really wants to ask a question, they can click on the microphone above us. Above where Dave is standing at the moment, you'll see a orange microphone. And if you click on it, it'll turn to green, and that will give someone a possibility to speak. Or you can raise your hand and we will invite you to speak. Raising your hand is just next to the right of where the microphone icon is located. And of course, you can write into the chat. As I warned Dave a little earlier today, I don't promise that people are going to be very, very active in the chat because it doesn't always happen. But, Michalis has asked a question.
Right, okay, now that's a very good, how to return to a sitting position. It's so long as you're not just plonking down like this, again, it's like a reverse pile driver. It's literally, the thing to do whenever you come to sit down, particularly in getting into a car, always, always, always keep your chin down. The reason being is taking the pressure here off the atlas joint and vagus nerve. So again, so when you sit down, this is fine, but keeping the chin down. But it's more relevant actually getting in and out of cars, because quite often we get into a car almost like this virtually, and all the time this puts huge pressure here, getting in, and because we need to crane our head to sort of not hit the roof, so to speak. But always, always, always keep that neck, keep that chin down.
But of course, it would be better if instead of getting in and out of a car, we would ride bicycles.
Well, that's very true. That's very true. But again, on getting on your bicycle, keep your chin down. Now, can you imagine with a class full of children as well? This immediately has an effect. Well, it will have an effect quite soon on their behaviour. Again, from a young age, think how many times they are getting up and down on off their seats, every day in that classroom, putting pressure here all the time on this atlas joint. The other thing to say about classes of children is so often they're looking up at a blackboard, or a class of young children, when it's story time, are sitting on the floor looking up at the teacher. It's this up all the time, which is actually causing problems with this atlas joint and vagus nerve. The ideal position of the neck, in effect, is imagine it's about 20 degrees. Imagine you're looking about 15 feet in front of you. So instead of this, it's more this. And that immediately puts this into neutral, in effect. So this is an example of how positive input of the physical, this time in this biofeedback loop, the physical having a positive approach effect on the mental and emotional side. Next question.
If there are other questions, please, this is an opportunity, either in the chat or someone can take a microphone if they would like. And, David's been going very, very strong now for 45 minutes, so we should at least respect that by asking questions to let him breathe for a little.
Oh, it's fine. not to worry. No, it's perfectly okay on that. Okay. Right. I will continue then. So okay. I will go back to the slideshow for a little while. So, whoops. So the atlas joint leg.
Dave, I'm going to be taking away the microphone for a moment so I can take yours back now. Oh, no, you still have it. It's okay.
Okay, that's fine. Right. So people get used to this, like I said, this cortisol effect of being hardwired about realizing it. And so throughout the day, we'll probably get used to like headaches or stiff joints, acid stomach, insomnia. The thing to say is that initial adrenal shot, not the cortisol, but the adrenal shot, it takes the body on average about 27 minutes to get rid of that adrenal shot, in effect. So I'm just going to go back to me again. So let's say in an average school day, you've got, say, lessons around about an hour. So you get into school and something maybe nothing particularly harmful kicks off in the classroom, but something just to, and quite often teachers actually almost like shut down things before they even start. So it's like as soon as you react, that adrenal shot kicks in. So school might start, I don't know, about 8:30, 9 o'clock, around about 9:30 perhaps, that shot kicks in. Maybe you've only got to have 2 shots a lesson or an hour, and that keeps you up here. So I don't know when school ends around the world, but around about 3:30 thereabouts, what do you think happens? Crash. But does school end there? Not in the school I was. It was meetings, it was marking, prep, maybe wall displays, whatever. And quite often you took work home with you. So therefore, you're becoming hardwired a lot of the day. And what we're getting is this cumulative deficit. And that's what we want to try and break. Going back to the slideshow again. So what we want to try and do is these adrenal shots is to take care of yourself. Because self-care is everything. Because if you're not well, how can you work? Being well just means, I don't mean you being absolutely in bed all the time, but sort of operating at this sort of below par all the time. So what we want to do then is have a look at how we can actually work in the classroom, in effect. So that's the.
Before you do that, Dave, you have a couple of comments in the chat you might want to take a look at.
Okay, that's great. Brilliant. Yes. Ah, right. I'm not familiar with the Feldenkrais method. That's fantastic. Yes, I've got lots of methods and things I use, but I've yet to come across the Feldenkrais, so that's fantastic. Do we want to share that, or?
The question, would you like Oren to take the microphone and say something, or?
Yes, because I haven't come across the Feldenkrais method, so perhaps if Oren would like to share that briefly, that would be fantastic.
In Israel, it's definitely known. Oren, you now have both the chance for a microphone and or a camera if you would like.
Microphone is enough. I hate exposing myself. I don't like myself. But what I can say from the
We
exercise,
like you. We like you.
Thank you. From the exercise that you showed of sitting down and standing up, it's very similar. That's what triggered my memory, because Feldenkrais was an engineer. He was an engineer as a hobby, and he was a doctor. And what he found out is that there's a connection, that our body is built and connected to each and every muscle, big muscles, small muscles, etc. And what he started doing is helping people first being aware of the movements that they're doing.
Yes.
It's for sometimes, because when you say we pressure different parts of our body, what he suggests is being aware and exercising the good movements that will take off the load and the pressure of different places in our body. And from my experience and from my mother's experiences now as an instructor of Feldenkrais method, it really helps many people. Even if you have a problem, it's a pathological situation, the body has a possibility to learn how to move with no pressure, because sometimes we know if you have a problem with one knee, then you lean much more on the other one and you cause damage, or you harm the other knee. And what he teaches is to balance your body and to work with and move effortless.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. It's funny because I also work with a guy called Sir Tom Lucas, who also was a structural engineer, and he's done just that, of applied these techniques, if you like, some of which I'm using today, to do just that, to actually get that, if you like, to take the pressure off the particular parts of the body and get it to work together. And that's absolutely wonderful. I'll go and certainly research and have a look at that more. That's wonderful. Hello?
I turned off my mic so you can speak with no echo.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for that. And I think that would be so useful for everyone else as well.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So we're already then, as Oren just said, that we're looking at ways then that we can actually start to work with body, mind, feelings, mind, body, and feelings together to try and get that, if you like, balance, but in everyday life. So this next section of how to apply this in the classroom, I'm going to use a little bit of work from a guy called Dr. Fred Jones, and you can see his work on TeacherNet. He's written about all aspects of the classroom. But he starts from the position of who is in control. And of course, we are as teachers, I guess. But the way we get that control quite often is reactive. So again, that adrenal shock cuts in, and we quite often react to situations rather than do it the other way around, of actually see what's in front of us and work with them. At the same time, sorry, this keeps moving. Right, at the same time, the children are pushing our buttons through body language. And I'm not going to say too much about body language. I'm going to say one specific thing a little bit later on. But all the time, your buttons are being pushed. Each time that button's being pushed, say you get the adrenal shot. So my only bit of educational leads, what we want to do is go to the emotional ATM and draw out a bit of emotional capital. So in other words, instead of reacting to something, we want to more turn it on its head and assess and think and manage. So what we're going to be doing now, we're going to be doing a couple of exercises that I'm going to go back on camera in a minute. But what we're doing in effect is reacting, not reacting, but instead of reacting to stressful situations, instead of reacting to them, we are going to manage them in effect. So in effect, managing other people's behavior is more about managing your own behavior, of course. Okay, so what I'm going to do is kind of come back on the screen. Okay, now, We're going to do, if you like, construct a little toolbox, or Fred Jones constructs a little toolbox. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is to ask you to do the opposite of probably what you think this workshop's about. It's really tense everything you've got. And there's a very specific way of doing this. First of all, you take your hands, put them on your shoulders, here's your elbows, put them on your knees, and turn your feet up. Now, when I say go, what I want you to do is to tense every muscle you've got for about 30 seconds. And health and safety, of course, don't forget to breathe whilst you're doing this. Okay, so I'm not going to count the seconds, but I'll give you a halfway marker. Okay, so here we go. Hands here on your shoulders, elbows on your knees, feet up. Okay, and go. And really tense every muscle you've got to feel how everything goes together. Focusing on your feet, ankles, just work your way up. Okay, keep it going, that's about 15. Okay, and now do the direct opposite. Just really let everything go. And again, starting with your feet, just letting your big toes relax, rest of your toes relax, etc. And once you're doing that, let's give you a very simple breath. So breathing in through the nose, 1001, 1002. Breathing out through the mouth, 1003, 1004. And rest, 1005, 1006. And get that muscle memory going. So breathing in through the nose, 1001, 1002. Breathing out through the mouth, 1003, 1004. And rest, 1005, 1006. And whilst you're doing that, keep it going. I'd like you to imagine, well, it's been quite an intense day at school. Well, they all are. And there you are, around about 10 o'clock or watching the late night news, and you're trying to do some marking. And you keep that breath going, breathing in, 1001, 1002, breathing out through the mouth, 1003, 1004, and the rest, 1005, 1006. And it's no use, you end up falling asleep. But it's that level of breath when you're actually falling asleep, which is a useful level of breathing to have in the classroom. I mean, any more and you'll be asleep, which wouldn't be absolutely brilliant at all, would it? Okay, so we'll put that in the tool chest. We'll put that level of breathing and that type of breath in the tool chest. Now, I mentioned earlier on about body language, and I'm only going to mention this really. Have a think, first of all, about what parts of the face, or what parts of the body really, say most about you in a non-verbal way. Have a think for a moment. What's communicating? Hands, perhaps. Maybe the way we stand again, this atlas joint here. Face. Eyes. Quite often we fix onto children or other people, perhaps. Well, the point which tells more or communicates more to your pupils than any other part is the jaw. So first of all, take your two fingers and just put this behind your ears. And just go, So you can always feel it like a hinge, can't you? And now, without stretching your mouth too far, you might get cramped. Just go, And be aware of all the muscles around here and all around the back of your neck. And your jaw is taking a huge amount of weight and also triggering off that atlas joint and vagus nerve again, quite often. So, all the time, the children are reading this jaw quite subconsciously. They haven't a clue that the jaw is probably the most important place, but all the time they're reading it. So what we want to do is not to be obviously angry or perhaps even just chilled out. What we want to be is neutral. So you're not giving away any feeling or emotion at all, but at the same time protecting you. So the easiest way to get a neutral jawline is first of all, take the tip of your tongue, put it on the back of your two front teeth, and then let it slip onto the soft palate of your mouth. Being neutral, in effect. So once again, what we do is take the tip of your tongue, put that on the back of your two front teeth, let it slide back to the soft part, and then that being neutral. Brilliant. Okay, so we'll put that in the tool chest as well, so to speak. So, I'm aware of time actually. So far, what we've done, I'm going to go slip back now to the slideshow. Let's bring that back down there, is we're tense, relaxed, we've slowed the breath, we've done a little bit of visualization, hopefully we'll have time to do a little bit more later on, and we've relaxed for jaw. I'm going to call that check jaw. Well, now, the next part, this is Fred Jones's work. So now, what I'm going to show you, having showed you how to sit down and get up, so to speak, it's actually how to turn around in the classroom. You think, what? Hang on a minute, I've done my turning around course in college, but this is exaggerated. But the theme of this is slowing down classroom interaction, in effect, rather than speed up and thinking you've got to be at the beck and call of every one of your pupils. That's just going to run you ragged. And it's not particularly the mischievous ones, it's also the needy ones as well. Please, sir, please, Miss Gibb, can you come over here? Well, virtually every drop of you, and they'll have it too, if they can have it. So this is an exaggerated way, but the principle is slowing down this interaction. So you just set some work as a teacher here in the class, and you're working with one person in particular who needs a bit of extra help. So there you are, working with Rob. Going to say hello to Rob? Hello, Rob. Okay, so we're working with Rob, and maybe something kicks off over there. Nothing too heavy, or it's just low level, but quite often the reaction from a teacher might be, and do something about it as you get that. So you get, oh, oof. Sorry, I did all that with the slideshow there. Right, so what we've been doing, as I say, slowing down interaction. So here's Rob, and I'm working with Rob here, and you've set the class some work, and something maybe kicks off over there. And quite often, as I said, the common reaction might be to literally stop that happening in its tracks. If you do so in that such way, that adrenal reaction cuts in, ping, and you're beginning to be hardwired again. So here's just, like I say, an exaggerated way of doing this. But here's Rob, and I'm working with Rob. Something happens over there, but I just merely acknowledge it, change my stance, and I'm working with Rob. So I'm staying down for one, breathing for one, remember that level of breath, and count for one, and then just stand up and turn around. And now Mr. or Mrs. Mischievous has now got my full attention. So the first thing to say is, what have I said to this person here, this girl or boy? And the answer, well, I've physically said nothing. What have I implied? That you have now my full attention. And normally, a lot of classroom interaction is quite low level interaction or disturbance. So I'm going to come over here in the place of Mr. or Miss Mischievous. Now, I would venture that most classroom management is triangular. So you've got teacher here, me, Mr. or Miss Mischievous, rest for class. The class is watching me, next move on the teacher. But by actually not engaging with a child like that, but just giving them attention, you're putting the behaviour, giving it back to the child. So now it's up to me, Mr. and Miss Mischievous, where I escalate the situation, and I've got the class watching, I might have a reputation, or do I walk away, whatever. At the same time, you have not triggered that adrenal shot, or hopefully not. You're just calming and slowing that situation down. So this is what Fred Jones calls the 3-second turn. And again, I've exaggerated it. But in effect, instead of immediately reacting to a situation, you're more slowing down and not giving, if you like, the hooks and cues which the children are looking for. Because quite often, the more you react, the more you're going to escalate that situation. So it's like, you're always picking on her, so or him, so. No, I'm not, said the teacher, immediate reaction. Again, as soon as you do that, you're engaging and escalating. So this is what Fred Jones calls the basic turn. Now, normally in an ordinary workshop situation, you sort of have a go at that and see how it feels. But time, not on our side as well, this is called the 6-second turn, or the we are not amused turn, according to Fred Jones. So here we are again with Rob. Something happens over there. So again, I don't react, I look. I'm working with Rob, staying down for one, breathe for one, count for one, turning around, breathing for one, count for one, check jaw. And again, I have the pupil in my midst, but again, not reacting in effect. Now, this might seem a bit daft, but like I say, the principle is slowing down that interaction. Obviously, if some child's going to jump out the window or whatever, you have to react. Not react, but do something a bit more quicker. But on the whole, like I say, most classroom behaviour is like this. And even with older children, when you're working 15, 16-year-olds in effect, quite often, well not often, but sometimes the effect is to goad you or provoke you. But by doing this or taking this sort of approach, it stops this adrenal shot and puts, if you like, I wouldn't say back in control. Control is the wrong word, but you're beginning to actually give out the message and information that this is the way you're going to do things. Funny enough, if you keep this going consistently for about a week, 2 weeks, children's behaviour will start to follow you. Now, I certainly didn't have riots in my classes or whatever else, but this certainly made my life a lot easier, and again began to change the biochemical inputs and outputs on my own body, mind and feelings. So what I'm going to do is to truncate this a little bit because I'm aware of time, and I'd like to take us forward to the breath work a little bit. To give you some more practical ideas and exercises, something you can take away, and also to do a little bit of visualization with you, which is hopefully just enable you to be chilled, and you can take that with you into the evening as such. So I'm just going to go back to slideshow very briefly, and coming down here, we're just going to scoot through here. Okay, right. So we mentioned about breath and breathing, but breath and neuropeptides are so important because working consciously with your breathing actually creates positive neuropeptides throughout the whole brainstem and into your spine. Either side of your spine, lymph canals, which you can massage and actually get going really well. So again, the whole breath approach, and there's lots of ways you can approach breathing, etc., really helps to positively generate these neuropeptides, not just for the vagus nerve across the diaphragm, but right way down throughout your spine. And think of your spine as like a superhighway, because every one of your major organs is nervously attached to the spine. So what I'm going to do now is to go back to me and right. Anyone talk about back? Anyone get back pains, stiff neck, lower back perhaps? Lots of teachers do. What I'm going to do is just try and show the impact of some basic breath just through a couple of exercises. Now, I'm not expecting miracles, far from it, but just a couple of exercises which you can use. And this will be in a pack which will be available a couple of weeks' time. Whatever. So it takes pressure off here, back, neck, and atlas joint and vagus nerve as well. So I'm going to sit down. I'm going to sit on the edge of my seat. If you'd like to join in, that'd be great. Again, give yourself a bit of space. Put your hands together. Put them on the back of your neck and set up a bit of pressure. Now, what we're going to do is to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And it's always really important that you always breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. And I'll say so why in a minute. So I've got my feet firmly on the ground, firmly rooted. What to do now is breathe in through the nose, breath through the mouth, whilst you're setting up this tension on your spine. Okay, so are you ready? Breathing in through the nose. Hold that breath. And as you breathe out through pursed lips. The reason being is that your out breath will be twice as long as your in breath. So just let that drain away. And once again, breathing in through the nose. To hold that breath, purse lips once again. And again, really begin to feel the rise and fall of your diaphragm, chest. Last one, breathing in through the nose. Hold that breath and release. Okay, we only did 3. It's really good to do maybe about 6 of those, maybe when you first get out of bed. Anyone notice, and we didn't do that very long at all, but did anyone notice any slight difference at all, perhaps? Maybe in the pressure here? Even that, I quite often remember or forget even that the muscles here quite often are beginning to open up these pelvic spaces here, or just above the pelvis. Okay, so sorry to rush this a little bit, but that's one exercise you can do. Second one, a little bit more complicated. I'm going to do this standing, although you can do this sitting. So first of all, take your hands again and put your fingertips on your shoulders. Now my head is level. As I breathe in through the nose, my head is going to go down and my elbows are going to go up as high as you can. Hold that breath. And as you breathe out through the mouth, purse lips, my head comes back to the middle and my arms come all the way around. Okay, should we try that? Okay, so head level. As we breathe in, head goes down, elbows go up. Are you ready? Go. Hold that breath and release through pursed lips. Crick, crack. Okay, let's try that again. And to hold that breath and release through the mouth, pursed lips. All the way around and back again. Okay, last one. Breathing in through the nose. To hold that breath and release. All the way around. Okay, and again, usually about 6 of those, again, good in the morning. But the idea is, anyone notice them begin to open up the diaphragm, this chest area here. And the idea is to get that breath slower and deeper. So that's just a couple of exercises you can do. And hopefully the purpose of that was to show perhaps the impact of some very basic breath work immediately there to have a physical effect. Again, it's that positive input. And again, that's generating those neuropeptides in that spinal cord. Now, the reason why I said always, always, always breathe in through the nose, not through the mouth, is that our breathing is an automatic response. But the way we breathe and the frequency of breath quite often is generated or regulated by the amount of carbon dioxide in our bloodstream, which is not a great thing to have. Obviously, we're going to have some carbon dioxide in here. So by breathing in through the nose and breathing out through the mouth, or breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, you are actually minimizing the amount of carbon dioxide going in. And what effect does carbon dioxide have? Well, it makes the blood sticky. It makes it much harder to get those oxygen molecules out of the blood. Now, oxygen in the atmosphere makes up about 22% of the whole, all the gases in the atmosphere. However, what the body makes use of is just one thing only. It extracts negative ions from the blood. Now, carbon dioxide, therefore, makes it a lot harder to do that. And having an ionizer, not a small one, but a fairly industrial one, really, really helps. And the places where you normally can get ready supply of negative ions is by the sea or over sort of moorland or forests or something like that, where there's a moving wind in effect. But having a supply of negative ions, how do you do that? Particularly if you live in cities and things like that, an ionizer is a really, really good idea. So let's have a look. As we just said, it restricts the CO2 in the blood. It restricts the blood supply and also thickens the blood as well. And of course, in doing so, in thickening that, that is also another small trigger for that sympathetic response, that fight, flight, that adrenaline as well. So this is all beginning to build, hopefully, as a tapestry of things, of the way that biofeedback loop is happening. So with our breath, quite often, our breath is trapped up in our upper chest. As I said, we want to try and get that lower and deeper. And quite often also, the more it's trapped in that upper chest, the more pressure it puts on that atlas joint and vagus nerve as well. So it also has an effect, if you like, of making you tense. And also that can be read as well by your children and other people too. So what we've got here is Gay Hendricks. There's 12 questions. There's 6 there and 6 coming up. So you can see that these questions are related to actually symptoms of not working so well with your breath. So you can say, do you tire easily? What have we got here? Mild or severe headaches. I'm surrounded by people at schools and afternoons with headaches. Are your muscles often tense, sore to a touch? But the clincher is the one at the bottom. When resting, do you breathe more than 15 times? Well, it's very common. I'm going to go back to me. Brilliant. It's very common for most people really to breathe 15, 20 times a minute, and up here as well. The ideal target is around about 8 breaths a minute, but it's not an inspector's target. It's not an Ofsted target. It's not a school target. It's something which you can get to within a few months perhaps, but just regular practice. So 2 things. Here's a breath you can do on an everyday basis, and it's very, very simple, which will help you almost switch, what I call switch. So switch maybe from anxiety or maybe tension to a more calmer state of mind. You can do this for children as well. We build this often into cool fire routines, and it's called the square breath. So I used to do it in the car on my way to school. Or if you're really having a tough time at school, you can nip into the loo perhaps, the toilet, and maybe just do a quick square breath. Or another good idea, start in the morning, maybe your department, or if you're in a primary school, get everyone to do this together. And it's very, very simple. So first of all, we're breathing in through the nose, and I'm going to count to 3. So breathing in through the nose, 1, 2, 3, and hold, 1, 2, 3, and release through the mouth, pursed lips, 2, 3, and rest, 1, 2, 3. And that's why it's called the square breath. I've drawn my air square, in effect. So should we just try that? So just again, breathe out through your nose, just to get rid of that carbon dioxide, first of all. You can do this sitting up or standing down. Standing up or sitting down. So, breathing out through the nose just once. And you can do the hand actions if you wish. So, breathing in through the nose, 1, 2, 3, and hold, 1, 2, 3, and release, 1, 2, 3, and rest, 1, 2, 3. And gradually, you can increase that count to 4 to 5. But it's not a race. Just do that. You can just spend the first couple of months doing it to 3. Great when the children come in from the playground. Completely all over the shop. Playground heads. Sit down, let's do a square breath. So going from up here to down here. So changing the input, changing the feeling, changing the thought, changing the action, in effect. Now for this last 5-10 minutes or so, I'm going to do a little visualization, in effect. And this is for you to really just chill out, really, to move or shift that consciousness from maybe a sort of mind energy more into body energy, in effect. And you can work with visualization in all sorts of different ways. But we're just going to go on a journey today, in effect. So, Jay, have you got that wonderful music of yours? There we are. That's fantastic. I'm just going to have a little drink of water. Okay, now, you might like to do this sitting down. If you do this sitting down, just make sure you're seated well into the seat, feet on the ground, hands just here on your knees. But of course, if you wish, lie down, that's fine. Feel that earth beneath you. Feel yourself just sinking into the earth. And I'm going to build into the square breath, into the end of it. So once again, just breathe out through your nose to start with. Just let that breath settle. And if you wish, you might like to close your eyes, but you don't have to. And now just focus on your breath. Just be aware of your breath. Breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you're breathing in through the nose, I'd just like you to imagine that as a pure white light. Just an image for your energy, that's all. And as you're breathing out through your mouth, again through pursed lips if you can, you're breathing out grey light. And you're breathing out everything you don't need. All stress, all tension, any worries, just being breathed away back to earth. So breathing in through the nose, white light. Breathing out through the mouth, grey light. And already that breath is getting deeper and deeper. Feel that breath beginning to feel inside you, down through your diaphragm, into your solar plexus. I'd like you now to follow that light into your throat, to feel your throat just flood with light. And so often the throat is where we keep those blocks, those mental and physical blocks. Just feel those blocks just melt away into that light. As each breath is already deeper, and each breath is pushing that light out beyond you further and further. As you follow that light across your lungs, feel that warm white light ebb and flow across every cell, every ventricle of your lungs. As your diaphragm just relaxes and opens out to receive that warm white light. With your heart just opening now like a flower to receive that light. Each breath pushing that light out further and further around you. And your heart opens to receive that cleansing, soothing light. And every drop of blood passing through your heart carries that light to every part of your body. Every cell, every muscle, every synapse. As we follow that light now across into your liver, the body's largest cleansing organ. But so often, unresolved emotional issues, or things maybe we haven't been able to deal with, we store those emotions quite often in our body organs. Just feel that whole area just relax to give up any tension it has. As each breath is getting really, really deep now. Each breath pushing that light out further and further around you. As you follow that light now into your solar plexus, the place where we first took in light, down through your digestive system, down into your hips. Each breath pushing that light out way beyond you now. And bring that light now down into your knees, those strong, pivotal, flexible points. As we bring that light now down into our ankles and our feet, to feel that light just cascading over our feet, joining you, connecting you with Earth. Just take a short time now to feel that connection with that Earth beneath you. Feel that breath, that cleansing breath, restoring you, enabling you to make contact. Just take a short time. And now, with each renewed breath coming up through your feet from the earth, as you breathe now, begin to bring that light back up through your feet and your ankles, your legs and your knees. Each breath pushing that light out further and further around you. as you're now bringing that light up into your hips, up through your digestive system, feeling cleansed, feeling light, and through your solar plexus. Bring that light now up across into your liver and into your heart, open like a flower. Bring that light now back up through your lungs to feel that warm white light rippling across your lungs. Each breath getting deeper and deeper as you're drawing that light now back up into your throat. And now bring that light up to your forehead, the seat of the pituitary gland, the master gland governing 5 other glands. And above your head, governing the pineal gland, deep inside your head, governing our intake of light, enables us to know when it's light and day. And you are now surrounded in warm white light, each breath now becoming so deep inside you, each breath pushing that light out further and further around you. And gradually, the very edges, the very layers of your body are melting into that light. And you feel yourself stretching out. Just feel your arms and legs just stretching out as you are literally becoming light. One vibration, one frequency, just pure energy. Any stress, any tension, just melting away into that light. Just take a short time now to feel yourself literally becoming light. And as you breathe, I'm going to ask that as you breathe in through the nose, I'm going to count to 3. To hold that breath for a count of 3. To release that breath through your mouth for a count of 3. And to rest for a count of 3. Don't worry about the hand actions. Just breathe. And so now, breathing in through the nose. 1, 2, 3. And hold. 1, 2, 3. And release. 1, 2, 3. And rest. 1, 2, 3. And for this last breath, we're going to extend that count to a count of 4. And so when you're ready, breathing in through the nose, 1, 2, 3, 4, and hold. 1, 2, 3, 4, and release. 1, 2, 3, 4, and rest. 1, 2, 3, 4. And good. And now, around your heart, just feel a green light emerging from around your heart. And just to feel your heart, that flower, just gently now closing for the evening. As now, very slowly, very gently, you begin to feel that gentle, pleasant weight returning to your feet and your ankles, your legs and your hips. As you begin to flex your toes and your fingers, as that gentle, pleasant weight returns to your arms and your shoulders, your neck and your head. As very, very slowly, very gently, you begin to open your eyes in the place where you are now. No hurry, just slowly, gently returning to this point and place in time. To gently open your eyes, flexing your toes and your fingers, feeling yourself firmly on the ground, either through your feet or through your back. If you're lying down, when you're ready, just gently sit up in the place where you are. If you're sitting down, just gently open your eyes and just feel that very gentle, pleasant weight of yourself in the chair, feet connecting with the floor, just gently coming back. Well, I hope we've just about reached 8:30, and I'm sorry that we hurried things a little bit along the way, but hopefully we've looked at various ways of working with mind, body and feelings, and how we are not just mind, we are mind, body and feelings, how we are not just mind in our brain, but the intelligent body, that everything we do is an interaction between the physical and the mental. Mental and emotional inputs produces an action in our body, and actions within our body also in turn produces that emotional and mental perspectives as well. And hopefully we've just scratched the surface today, but we've begun to look at some immediate tools and immediate thoughts and ways we can actually begin to work with this in a very practical way, both in the classroom and for you as a person. And I'd just like to say it's been an absolute delight and pleasure to work with everyone tonight, and hopefully we'll work and meet again, perhaps somewhere. Thank you. So back to you, Jay.
I had to get up off the floor, so it's taking a moment to get back to here. Thank you very, very much, Dave. You're getting thank yous and thumbs up, and I think that other people are getting up off the floor now. So we're all going to say thank you very, very much to, actually, I will do that too. Let's see there.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
So I think we're going to forego questions. There's really no need for that. I think we want to, with our breathing, say thank you instead of getting into a discussion, getting into obviously not an argument. It's been very, very nice having you with us, Dave. I want to add that it's been a pleasure for me for working with you preparing this, because we checked out numerous possibilities. We stretched the envelope to a certain extent, how to organize this, how to use it, how to get it going. And,
so I can move rather than sitting in a laptop. Yes.
Yes, and that is a bit strange, I have to admit. But no, I've enjoyed meeting with you throughout this time, getting things going. And I think we've all said thank you very much. And I think that all of us are going to simply let our, I'm going to leave the music on now until I turn off the recording. And so we'll all say thank you very, very much to Dave. And everyone is welcome to go their way. Dave, one more thing that I think we should emphasize now. The recording will be available to everyone, not immediately, but soon.
Yes.
And you will be deciding whether to make available a PowerPoint or a PDF of the PowerPoint or some other materials. You'll decide how to do that.
Yeah,
and we'll be in contact, and it will be made available in one way or another.
Yes, absolutely. I'll probably be supplying a supporting pack listing some of the exercises with a couple of the PowerPoints, so it makes sense from what we did today.
Very good. That's your prerogative. We'll be happy to also make that available to the participants once we've done that. So most people have now awakened. I see they've written in the into the chat. So we want to thank you very, very much. And I'm going to stop the recording. Oljan, did you want to say something? You can take the microphone if you'd like. But
okay, Dave, hello.
Hi, how are you doing?
How are you?
Great to hear you again.
Yeah, it was nice to meet you here, but I really enjoyed your meeting today, as well as the meeting we had 2 months ago.
Oh yes, yes,
Yeah.
before Christmas. Yes.
Yes, yes. And I have to say that your introduction about biophysiological relations between mind, body, and feelings is very, very useful for understanding, for clarifying. And I think the practice we had here with you, it was very useful. I mean, I really enjoyed the relaxation.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll be working together in Bristol, I think, next month.
Yeah, I hope. We will meet there.
Wonderful.
Okay,
Really
thank
look
you.
forward to it. And also, thank you so much for tuning in tonight. I'll be with you for next week.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Oljan. Yes, we will be meeting again next Wednesday with a presentation in which Oljan is presenting along with, remind me, Alex Schneider. Alex Schneider. And Alex is a wonderful person, a wonderful principal until just recently. Now he's retired. And I've seen his school before, and it's a place where children simply enjoy learning, and that's hard to say something better than that. So thank you all very, very much for being with us, and we look forward to being with you again in the continuation of our seminar.
Thank you.